J.D. Salinger's Holden Caulfield. You've definitely heard of him. He's been called a hero, a whiner, you name it. But almost 75 years later, he's still one of the most unforgettable characters out there. So today, we're going to try and get inside his head, using his own words to figure out the cynical, lonely, and yeah, surprisingly compassionate teenager at the heart of The Catcher in the Rye. Right out of the gate, from the very first sentence, Holden lets you know who he is. This isn't some formal, stuffy story. It's a conversation. He's talking right to you. He's a little defensive, and he's immediately pushing away what he calls crap. You know, the phony, sentimental stories he just can't stand. This one line, it sets the tone for the entire book.
So, here is the basic setup. It's a few days before Christmas, and Holden has just been kicked out of Pencey Prep. It's his 4th school, by the way. But instead of going home and facing his parents, he decides to just disappear into New York City for a while. And what happens next isn't really a road trip. It's more like a deep, messy dive into his own head. And this right here is the huge disconnect at the center of Holden's character. I mean, look at what he does. He's constantly trying to connect with people. He calls up old girlfriends, he goes to bars, he even hires a prostitute just so he can talk to someone. But then you hear his inner monologue, and it's a whole other story. It's just this relentless storm of judgment and anxiety, and it shows you how deeply he feels like he just doesn't belong anywhere. And that storm of judgment, it brings us to the absolute core of how Holden sees the world, and to his all-time favorite word. He sees hypocrisy everywhere, in pretty much everyone. And he's got one simple, powerful label for all of it: phony. So what exactly is a phony to Holden? Well, it's not just a liar. It's anybody who's just performing. You know, people who say things they don't mean, who follow the script of being an adult without ever questioning it. It's his go-to word for anything and everything that feels fake. And boy, is his list of phonies long. It starts right at home, with his own brother, a writer he used to admire who he thinks sold out by going to Hollywood. It's his school, with its shiny brochures that promise something he knows is a lie. It's actors, it's his dates, it's the slick Ivy League guys he runs into. For Holden, the entire adult world is just a big stage, and he absolutely despises the show. This quote just nails his whole point. To him, this phoniness isn't just annoying, he thinks it's a mask for something much uglier, like a real lack of kindness. He'll see a woman bawling her eyes out over a sad movie, but then she's awful to her own kid sitting next to her. For Holden, that's the ultimate hypocrisy. But here's what's so important to get about Holden. All this anger, all this judgment, it's not because he thinks he's better than everyone. It's a shield. It's just the outward sign of a kid who is profoundly, painfully lonely. I mean, the guy is constantly reaching out. He tries to make conversation with 3 girls in a bar, but all they care about are movie stars. He pays a prostitute, Sunny, but all he really wants is someone to talk to, which just weirds her out. He meets an older schoolmate, Carl Luce, hoping for some real advice and just gets called immature. Every single time he tries, it backfires and it just pushes him deeper into his own head. And then you get this famous, almost random question he asks the cab driver. It's so revealing. On the surface, yeah, he's just asking about ducks. But what's he really asking? He's asking about vulnerability. What happens to the helpless things when the world gets cold and harsh? Where do they go for safety? He's not really asking about ducks. He's asking about himself. And his story is just filled with these moments of raw, gut-punch honesty. Think about that. Even the sound of someone else's happiness, when you're on the outside looking in, just becomes another reminder of how completely and utterly alone you feel. Okay, so if the adult world is a phony mess and he can't seem to connect with anyone, what does Holden actually believe in? What does he think is worth protecting? Well, the answer, as we're about to see, is innocence. You can see this really clear line in his mind. His present is just filled with these failed, superficial conversations, but his head is constantly drifting back to these simple moments of real, uncomplicated connection, and they're almost always from his childhood. He's obsessed with this memory of his childhood friend, Jane Gallagher. And it's not even romantic, really. It's about this one pure moment of just holding hands, where nothing was complicated, you were just there, and you were happy. That's the feeling he is so desperately chasing. And this question is really at the heart of Holden's whole crisis. If people grow up and turn into phonies, and if relationships always seem to fail, where do you find any kind of stability? He finds a strange kind of answer at the Museum of Natural History. He loves the displays, the dioramas, because they're frozen in time.
The Eskimo is always finishing his fishing. The deer is always drinking from the stream. It's a perfect, unchanging world, and that gives him a ton of comfort. But that's the heartbreaking part for him. The museum stays the same, but you change. Each time you visit, you're a little older, a little more complicated, a little closer to that phony adult world he's so terrified of. The museum becomes this painful reminder of the innocence he feels like he's already lost.
Then this pivotal thing happens. He's walking down the street and he hears this little kid walking in the gutter, not a care in the world, just singing this song to himself. And the raw, authentic innocence of it just cuts right through his depression. It's a real moment in a world of fakes, and it leads him to his ultimate fantasy. He wants to be the catcher in the rye, standing at the edge of a cliff, saving children from falling into the phony world of adulthood. But for all his anger and loneliness, there is one person who can always get through to him. One person who is everything he wants to protect in the world. His 10-year-old sister, Phoebe. Phoebe is the real deal. She's not a phony. She's funny, she's smart, and she loves him unconditionally, even when he's being a mess. She is the living, breathing version of the childhood innocence that Holden worships and feels slipping away from him. And the whole book builds to this one beautiful, perfect scene in Central Park. Phoebe's riding a carousel and it starts pouring rain. But instead of running for cover, Holden just stands there, totally present in the moment. Then Phoebe takes his red hunting hat, his weird armor against the world, and puts it on his head. It's just this simple gesture of total, pure acceptance. And in that moment, just watching her go round and round on the carousel, all of his cynicism, all of his anger, it just melts away. He isn't judging anything. For the first time in the whole book, he lets himself just feel happy. He's happy just watching something innocent and beautiful. But this isn't a fairy tale. There's no neat, tidy ending. We find out Holden is actually telling us this whole story from some kind of hospital or rest home. He doesn't know what's next or if he's going to apply himself this time. His future is a complete unknown. And that leaves us with the big question people have been arguing about for decades. So, who is Holden, really? Is he just a spoiled kid complaining about everything? A deeply sensitive teenager reacting to some serious trauma? Or is he a kind of truth teller, the only one brave enough to call out the phoniness we all just learned to live with? The genius of the character, and the reason we're still talking about him today, is that the answer is probably all of the above.